We had one demo session day before yesterday, but let me continue from beginning. So we are here to learn Spring Boot and microservices. Spring Boot followed by microservices and purely real-time scenarios I'm going to cover for each and every concept. Prerequisites to start with Spring Boot microservices. Prerequisites which you should have is basics of Java, concepts like what is class, what is object, method, constructor, basic concepts, exception handling, collections, and oops. Okay, so this is the basic expectation from Java. And you should have SQL knowledge, basic SQL knowledge, DDL operations, DML, DR, how to insert, how to create table, how to insert records or update records, and how to retrieve. The basics of SQL are enough. Apart from this, if you know already Spring old framework, if you know already Spring framework, if you know already Spring framework, that is well and good. If not, also nothing to worry. We will be starting with the basic Spring framework discussion, followed by Spring Boot microservices. So Spring framework since 2012, 13, it was started. We used to work on XML based configurations. That was the old style. And project skeleton creation responsibility, everything is on us. As a developer, we used to do, but Spring Boot made it very simple. Anyone creates skeleton and they can start implementing their services. Whether it is a simple web application or a microservice application, it is very simple. In few steps, we can create a project. We don't have that luxury in Spring framework. All the skeleton creation that we used to do. For that, we need to have little expertise also, but not in Spring Boot microservices. Okay. Now, how to start? What is the pattern? From where we need to start, sir? We know basics of CoreJava, basics of SQL. So what is the pattern to start with it? How to learn? From where we should start? I'll give you a roadmap. Okay. I'll give you a roadmap. Okay. If my screen is visible, we will start. Okay. We'll start with basics. Basics of Spring framework. Basics of Spring framework. We'll start with basics of Spring framework. If font is not visible to you, just zoom in, okay? basics of Spring framework. We will start with what can be covered in it, the topics, what we can cover. Okay. We will start with here. What is simple? Spring bean. What is spring bean? Why we are calling beans? What types of spring beans we have? That we will learn here. What is spring bean? Generally, we call every class as a bean in Spring. What types of spring beans we have? Why we are calling it as bean? Then how we initialize this bean? Spring bean we will have. How the spring beans will be initialized? How to create object? How to create object? And what is IOC container? IOC containers. Simple classes, we call them spring beans. Then how to create objects to that beans using IOC containers. Here again, we have multiple flavors. IOC containers, bean factory, and application context. Application context. Application context. So here we will cover the basics, very basics of Spring Framework. What is bean, how to create object, containers, bean factory, application context, and dependency injection. Dependency injection. Once we covered with these basics, we'll take you through advanced concepts. We'll start with Spring Boot. Again in Spring Boot, what we will discuss here, the main Spring Boot annotations, all the annotations, how we are overcoming the challenges that we have in the basic framework, the XML configuration, loading into containers, doing the dependency injection, how we made them easy with annotations that we will see in the Spring Boot. All annotations will be covered. So coming to annotations, there is a bunch of list. So that bunch of annotations we have to cover, starting with bean. These are very important. By this time, right, you will get good hands-on with annotation. At the rate configuration, controller, REST controller, service, component, auto wired. As such, we have a lot of annotations. So we'll be learning all the annotations here. Then followed by, we will see MVC, REST implementation, and all other miscellaneous concepts. All Spring Boot concepts. There are so many concepts, profiles, logging, all such, apart from the modules within the core itself. Then AOP, aspect-oriented programming. Then we can go through Spring schedulers, mail API, all such we can cover. Importantly, Jdbc and ORM. Here we will see Jdbc in Spring Boot, Spring Boot ORM, which includes data JPA concepts. Okay. So by this time, we will get complete idea on Spring Framework, all the corners of Spring Framework you will get. How to use Spring to implement any monolithic or simple REST-based implementations. End to end you will get. Then what we do next. Now by using Spring Boot, in case if you get any requirement to implement microservices, is it different from monolithic? Yes. In monolithic application, everything, all modules, whichever application you wanted to do or you wanted to implement, all modules will be covered in same project. Instead of covering all the modules in the same project, if you have an application, something like Swiggy, if I title this, or Zomato, something. Whichever modules you have, you can say services, order service. Consider order module. So this is monolithic application, order related implementation. I have one module. Customer, I have one module. Restaurant, I have one module. delivery boy, delivery will do delivery module. Like this, I have multiple modules. Each module is connecting with each other. That is how monolithic application we will implement. And even front end logic also we can have here. You may have front end also here. UI logic also together you can have here. You may add along with this your modules. When it comes to microservices, to overcome the challenges of parallel implementation, load balancing, auto scaling, as all these are not possible in monolith, right? We convert them into, or we implement them as microservices. In microservices, instead of implementing in a module fashion, we will implement them in a services. Instead of modules, we do implement services, order service, customer service, restaurant microservice, separate applications, separate application, delivery service. And we can have separate UI service. So like this, we do clear separation of these modules instead of stitching them together into a single application. We'll separate them as separate microservices. When you separate them as a separate services, we will have challenges. How to connect with them, how to establish communication between them, where to maintain security, logging, tracing. Those are difficult areas. So in case of microservices, how we will be handling them? Load balancing. To implement them in a service fashion, what additional concepts we need? Load balancing. Here we use Eureka, gateway, a common gateway we need to implement. So we have cloud gateway that we can use. And for logging, we can use ELK stack. By using ELK, we can do logging. So it will be a centralized logging server where all the logs will be loaded and easily we can go and search, like Kibana dashboard we will have to search logs. And for distributed tracing, right? To trace, we can use Zipkin, circuit breaker when there is a failure. If you want to do rehits, retries, using circuit breaker, resilience for J, okay? We will implement all the circuit breaker principles, retry mechanisms, mainly. Very important in microservices because when they are deployed into different servers, different pods, when you try to hit from one server to another server, sometimes they may fail due to network delays or network issues. We should not immediately fail the actual request which is coming from the user. Maybe you need to retry one more time, then you decide. And we need to maintain configuration centrally. So how we do configuration management, or you can say cloud configuration, we'll see. right? Like this, all the challenges we should overcome. And how to deploy finally, right? How to deploy them in a really cloud. In cloud, how to use Kubernetes to deploy and manage them. So finally, we'll learn how you can create microservices with all the possible solutions. You will be expert by here. Okay, good. Any doubt so far?
Sir, are we going to discuss like Mockito and
Yeah, those are
security?
miscellaneous concepts. Okay, if you ask me, I did not listed them. Actuators. Okay, all the miscellaneous concepts. Let me list down. Okay, we can see for JUnit coverage, right? For JUnit, how to use Mockito, and for code quality, how to use Sonar, and Lombok. It's a small tool, but many may not have idea. Lombok and Swagger, very important. This is one of the important concept. Uh, Instead of it as a miscellaneous, I can say, especially here, right? I can include it in Spring Boot, but documentation is very important in microservices. People usually ignore it. It will be challenging if documentation misses. Okay, so Swagger for the documentation purpose. And what else? And AI integrated. Okay, this training will be AI integrated. One concept I'm, in last time also I implemented AI chat with the DeepSeek that I can show you how to implement in Spring Boot. Let me add one more module here. Spring Reactive, WebFlux, and AI. Lot of concepts, okay? Spring AI. AI with the DeepSeek I covered last time, okay? That we can see. Without any API keys and all, you can install DeepSeek in your local and your machine will become AI machine. Simple. Yeah. So this is what holistically we are going to cover, which means everything end to end till microservices. Yeah. Now go ahead if you have any questions. Hello,
Yes, sir. Yes.
Kumar. Yeah. Kumar, Pawan, Abhilash.
So we will be implementing all these concepts, right?
Correct. Just a minute. I'll keep. Yeah. So real challenging things, right? Real time as I am seeing especially in microservices. I know the pain areas. Okay. So I'll be covering all the pain points, how you can easy your microservices development, uh, like uh, like an expert, right? How you can handle the things. I'll deliver here so that you can show that level of confidence in your development or team. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It would be great if we cover like Hibernate related concepts also.
I
So like,
usually between these sessions, right? I used to take one servlet session and hibernate session. 1 hour servlets and 1 hour, 2 hours hibernate. For last batch also I covered that because nowadays it is not mandatory to go through all. Earlier we used to learn. Earlier pattern is this is how, right? First we used to learn core Java, then advanced Java, which covers Jdbc, servlets, right? JSPs, JSTL, all that. If you have time and if you are learning it, that's well and good. But I'm not keeping it as a showstopper to learn Spring. Then Hibernate. No, even while we were learning, we used to keep learn EJBs also. Okay. Now, I don't think you need to have all these. The pattern is simple now. You have CoreJava concepts, start Spring. Now, for your question, why Hibernate and Servlet sessions I am taking is to understand the depth of mappings, right? In Hibernate, we will learn it is not a simple direct Java that whatever way I wanted to code, I can code. No, as you have a table design, entity design, it will have relationship with the tables. So based on your tables, entities, relations, we need to create Hibernate entities also from Java end. That basic idea, if you don't have, then randomly you will create entities that may not suitable for your application design. We can design in 100 ways, but it may not give a good performance, or it may not suitable, or it may not work. So how many types of mappings we have, how generally we do mapping, how Hibernate making it simple, CRUD operations, that first level idea I will give in 1 2 sessions. Then the same concepts by easing configurations we will learn in data JPA. We'll learn them in data JPA in Spring. So just for a background, right, what happening in data JPA, I'll give Hibernate basic concepts, how internally Hibernate works, you will understand before data JPA. Same way, servlets one session I'll take before Spring MVC, so that you can understand how this framework itself is designed internally. It will be easy. Okay. So one extra session on servlets and Hibernate will be taking in between. Yeah, that is for your question. Okay. Anything else?
sir, are you going to like explain us like a topic wise or by taking a sample project, by creating project and covering these things?
Creating a project and giving each concept idea is very difficult. You cannot understand.
Yes.
So for each concept, I'll create an example. I'll create a project, a small project, and I'll explain to cover only that concept. By the time we reach to MVC, right, we will be holding a good knowledge on all the modules so that you can implement end-to-end use cases here by the time we reach to MVC. I would keep these concepts at the bottom. what I can say. So by this time, you will be learning how to use Jdbc, how to implement DAOs and all, right? Then on top of it, we'll see these concepts. So that end-to-end use cases you will see. Okay. Whatever we learned so far with annotations and all, JDBC, data JP and all, right? How they all useful to you to implement a end-to-end use case. Finally, this is what we will achieve. Model view, controller, architecture we follow for any implementation.
Sir, is
As
MVC monolithic or what?
MVC applicable for monolithic microservices everywhere.
Okay.
Generally, view you don't implement. Even in monolithic also, I mean, it is up to you. Do you want to implement views together in your web, or you can implement a separate view layer? Okay, there is no such condition that you compulsory need to implement views. So in general, right, in monolith, we will implement views by using simple HTML, CSS, JS we will add and we implement. In microservices, and this will be within your application. I'll keep it as monolith, JavaScript, jQuery, all this stuff we used to use to design front end, JSP also. When it comes to microservices, we are implementing separate view components using Angular, nowadays most famous React. Separate UI layer we are implementing. Either you hard code within your application, not hard code, I mean keep UI within your application itself, or you can create a separate application. Doesn't matter. The matter is all backend. Backend side, you need to implement controller. Once we get knowledge of all the modules, right? What finally you are achieving, which part or which layer of MVC you can able to implement, which means you can implement controllers, services, and DAOs. End of the day, in these three areas, we are contributing. Web will give you confidence how to implement these controllers. AOP transactions will give you how to keep hold on service. JDBC, DAO, I mean data JPA will give you good hold on to implement DAOs. And the basic module, the IOC is a standard module, Spring Core module, which help you to run all these classes. End of the day, the container for us is Spring Core. Spring Core on top of Spring Core only. All these are depending. Here we will use module like for DAO, right? Spring providing Spring JDBC. We have plain JDBC also, right? Why we are going with framework means experts created some template classes to make our job easy and not too much failure. Okay, they simplified to avoid a lot of failures and to avoid a lot of code stuff. That means they created simple templates, or simply I can say they followed all the best practices to design framework, and they given helper classes to you to make your job simple with all followed good design patterns. Though you don't know, they implemented as part of framework. If you use that framework, which means you are following all that practices. On top of it, we need to learn how to use it wisely. Spring JDBC, Spring ORM. Here we can use Spring Data JPA. This is the most simplest one. And currently we are using it, right? For in any application, if you see, data JP is the mostly used concept. Coming to service, nothing required here basically. This is business layer, simple annotation, one service annotation we use, and we will add business logic. Apart from this, in case if you encounter a situation there, you need to handle transactions. So Spring transaction module we will use here. And if you want to add anything on the fly using AOP, we can use AOP here. Nothing much required. Maybe if you want to send any emails, mail API you can use. Or if you want to create some services like a quad or timers or schedulers, you may use schedulers here, Spring schedulers or Spring quad. You may not see this requirement across all the services, I mean all the implementations, but wherever it is required, you can use any other module to accommodate the transactions or AOP, mailing or scheduler, you can. Now, importantly, coming to controller. Spring security, first place security. How to handle security. Then Spring MVC we use here to implement backend controllers. And Spring Webflux we can use here for reactive based applications. In Spring MVC itself, they covered Spring REST based implementations. These are very important for microservices. Basically, I can say all these are important. For all requirements, you may need not to have Webflux. Wherever you have reactive based implementations, Webflux also you may require. Blocking and non-blocking type of implementations we need to see. Continuous response if you want to give, Webflux we use. Like in ChatGPT, when you type something, it will continuously post your response. Or while watching movie, continuously your movie will be streamed. For all such, right, we can use Webflux.
Is it similar to async type of communications?
Correct. Continuously, if there is some job running behind, right, some threads running at your backend, it need not to finish that backend operation. That can be continuously can run asynchronously. It can send a response. This is also important, I can say, but not for all the use cases. I'll give different use cases for them. So finally, what you are going to do means that's it. Controller service DAO. If I look here, lot of concepts to achieve the MVC. Okay. So implementation will be simple. End of the day, you are going to create few entity classes and few controller services done DAOs. We need to learn how exactly we need to use those annotations or concepts to fulfill these concepts or to fulfill this MVC or to fulfill my requirement, right? How can I better write controller services and DAOs? That's it. Database. End of the day, it will connect with database.
Sir, microservice design patterns also we will use, like Saga patterns.
Yeah. I did not mention everything here, but yeah. This is the design patterns website that I prefer. You also can go through it. Okay. So our latest concepts, latest patterns, best practices, we can learn from experts here. So from this one, I'll be covering all these patterns. Let me walk you through. Basically, right, as we are traveling from monolithic background, First, we will see monolithic architecture. Just a minute. Okay, I'm good. Yeah. So monolithic architecture, like old applications, how we used to implement. In case if you want to migrate from monolithic to microservice, basically what is monolithic architecture, what is microservice architecture, how to migrate from monolithic to microservice using strangler and anti-corruption patterns. Then once we understand how to convert, what are all the important patterns that we should follow while migrating or while creating microservice, how you will decompose requirements. First part is requirements. I got bunch of requirements. You should learn how to break that requirements into microservice first. If I say I know how to use databases, I know how to implement Saga, everything, no use. First, you should know how to decompose your requirements. Then only you can assign work to your team. Hey, these many services we have. As per requirement, I understand. 4 services or 5 services are required. Let's implement them. So decomposition is very important first step. Decompose by business capabilities or subdomain or service, self-contained services or services per team. We'll do depth discussion about them. Okay, exactly how they will work. What is decomposition by business capability? Decomposed by subdomain, self-contained. Need not to worry by looking into this a large picture. Okay, concepts are very simple. You can easily understand whatever background you have, doesn't matter, easily you can understand all this. Then how to use databases, a separate database for each microservice or a shared database, both pros and cons. Then CQRS, how to design APIs, basically all CRUD operations in a single API or a separate APIs. What are all the challenges? Where do we need to follow the CQRS command query patterns? To maintain transactions, Saga, there are so many patterns, okay? And for testing, testing also very critical. How to do end-to-end testing, component testing, and consumer-driven. If you don't keep testing in a mind and if you develop it right, it will be very challenging it you through testing also. UI, how we will implement. Client-side UI, or in UI itself, front end for backends, for all services, a separate front end, micro front ends, or one single front end. There are also some pros and cons we need to discuss. For observability, I implemented lot of bunch of 50, 60 services. Now, Is it simple to manage them? No, very difficult. If you don't have proper logging, proper tracing, proper health checks, if you don't have proper exceptions, it will be nightmare to identify the problems once it moves to production. So very, 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 very critical.
Sir, what is difference between logging and tracing?
Logging is a kind of we record where we are at current situation, log.info, something like that, right?
Gotcha.
Right.
Request place.
No, no, simple log. Log.info, log.error. We do log, right? Like SOP, system.out.println, line one
Acha.
executed, line two executed. We used to put right before, to understand up to which line the code is executed.
Correct, correct.
So in logs, we put that for every request, right? Where exactly our log is. I have 100 services. My request to travel to service 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It was traveling till 100. Thereafter, the request will finish. In between, if it fails, we should understand where exactly it failed. I will open log, my centralized log dashboard. When I search that log, if logs are recorded up to service number 50 or 60, I can realize, okay, after 60, it did not went to the 60th service. Okay, let me understand what happened in the service 59. I will open 59 service log and I can see if there is any exception. Okay, this is what happened in that, service 59 at that time. That is why it failed. So quickly I can fix, or else if it is a dependency with other external systems, I will communicate with them. Hey man, during this time, your service were down. So that's why my service also went down. All my requests got failed. Give me proper RCA. What happened? And in future, if I get any similar challenges, how do you want me to handle it? Now coming to tracing, instead of going through the logs and identifying where it is, how it is failed, right? If you have some tracing dashboard, right? A UI representation, a graphical UI, like Jipkin is having that beautiful feature. It will show a graph to you. Service 1 success, service 2, service 3, service 4. A graphical representation, it will show you where exactly it failed also. It will give you that information with a beautiful trace ID. For every request, right? It will generate a trace ID. That is the unique ID you can use to search logs in any service. Okay. It's a different concept. Okay. Logging is a simple, keeping log into your ELK or wherever it is. Without distributed tracing or tracing ID, even if you log also, that may not much useful. It is useful, but not much useful. So whereas tracing IDs also we need to generate to understand for which user request that logs are recorded. Okay.
Okay, sir. It means tracing is for across
Correct.
microservice level. Logging is for within microservice.
Within microservice. I mean, by using simple logging, it is very difficult to identify the problem without tracing IDs. So there should be one unique tracing ID that should be span across all the services for every request. Let's say you placed an order, okay, in a Swiggy or Zomato, you book food, something happened and your order got failed and your fund also debited. So definitely you will have one unique transaction ID, right? When you place order, you will get a transaction ID. So this is your transaction ID for booking this order, you will get it. Imagine if you don't have such unique transaction ID, you placed a food, it failed. And if you reach out to Swiggy and say, I placed the order so and so time, but it got failed. To them to identify where exactly the problem is happened is very difficult without having the transaction ID. If you have transaction ID, they will search with the transaction ID in the log board or Kibana board, wherever it is. They will take developers help in case if the issue is very critical. Using that trace ID, they can get all your execution metrics, all your execution logs. when you placed your order, which all services executed with the tracing ID. And they can easily track what happened exactly during that time. Without tracing ID, if you say my order got failed with your name or with your details, if they try to search log, maybe a lot of history records also it will pull. If you had placed orders in the history, 1,000 plus orders, all that 1,000 orders related information also it will give. Filtering it out and finding the problem will be difficult. So whereas tracing will help you to do that stuff simple. Anyway, same way, reliability. As I was saying, right? Always your services may not 100% available, which means that they are not even failed. Maybe they are busy, or there might be some network issues. Network fluctuation may happen, and that may resolve in fraction of seconds. But during that fraction of second, if you make a request and if it get fails, you need not to panic and say that my service got failed. You can retry. You can have different techniques, to handle that. And communication styles, direct, synchronous, asynchronous, by using Rabbit MQs or Kafka MQs. Different types of implementations, that is also very important. Security, JWT based, WAT, cross-cutting corners, externalized configurations, service templates, microservices, chassis. I don't know what it is. I should see. External configurations are very important to manage configurations, right? I realized it. I mean, earlier I used to think, or I used to keep all the configurations in a centralized way, but even that is also not recommended. A lot of failures may happen. Whatever, see, while too much extensive microservices design also we should not do, as well as we should not keep it as too much monolith. We should see if too much extensive patterns, if we follow also, the failure rate will be high and the response also may not very quick. So in a balancing way, we need to implement microservices. I'll explain you. Okay. So how to, think in a different way to implement a good microservice. Discovery, this is what like Eureka I was saying, right? Eureka will help you as a service registry, and client side discovery we can do. Self registration will happen. All that we will see. And the sidecar, this is one of the important concept. Recently I came through. Okay. Then how to deploy infrastructure side? This is do you want to use a separate VM or a same VM, a separate host itself or different host? Deployment side patterns also we'll discuss. So once you understand all these patterns, right? Gateway to give external API accesses, API gateways, backend for front ends, blah blah blah. We have. So each one we should discuss and see the solution. That's where easily you can able to implement this microservices. Okay, design patterns also will be covered. Without that, even we will not start even first step. Okay, that is the first thing that we do. Microservice design patterns. Okay, here they did not mention anything about solid principles and all. Okay, that is a basic practice. Okay, you can follow from CoreJava. I'll explain, and a lot of videos also there. I'll share it with you. Solid is one of the important one that you should aware, but that is not exactly related to us. Okay, any questions?
No, sir, you covered almost everything.
Yeah. And it will take 45 to 50 sessions, okay, to cover everything. Yes, let me save it in my device.
Sir, code access we will get now, sir.
Yeah, daily I'll be sharing it. Even you can see the previous batch videos.
Acha.
Code and daily video, everything I'll be uploading and giving you access. You will have full access, okay?
Okay, sir.
Or is this only weekdays batch or weekend also?
Only weekdays, Monday to Friday. Weekends for all miscellaneous concepts or extra concepts or project oriented things. When I need extra sessions, right, I will be utilizing it.
Okay.
For previous batch, this coming weekend, I'm conducting a small project, so they will be joining there. So like that, right? As and when it requires, I'll just give you heads up before. I'll update to you maybe at least a week before, which weekend uh, we plan to extend sessions so that based upon the people availability, right, we can plan. Yeah, only weekdays, Monday to Friday.
8 to 9, sir, morning.
Yeah,
At this
in
time.
8 to 9. Exactly.
Okay.
By sharp 9, we can 9 by 9 or 9:15. We can wind up. Any questions? Okay.
No, sir, it's a great demonstration.
Yeah. So we'll be keeping the videos, these videos, demos, right? First 1 2 days will be available DurgaSoft YouTube. Thereafter, right, all the videos will be uploaded into Drive that I'll be sharing with you. You will be having live access, okay? And if I find any new things also, right, I'm keeping into one common repository and sharing it with everyone. Even if I cover the future batches also, if I cover any additional concepts, that will be available to you. Okay. So
Yes,
you
sir.
and I will keep on update with new concepts also. If I encounter anything new, if that is really important, I'll be sharing across. Okay.
Sir, is this videos will be available till lifetime or any specific time period?
I'm not putting any timeline.
I mean, not the demo videos. I'm asking the regular videos.
Regular only, I'm saying. Is there any time limit in Drive? If I upload something into Drive, will it expire?
No, it will not. If you put timeline, then only
No,
it
no, I'm
will.
not. I'm not doing that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Then, see you all tomorrow. Okay. We'll start with the basic core module. Okay. We'll start with basic core module. Whoever having basic, basic Java knowledge, they can join here. I would recommend. Okay. I see many people are from, freshers can join the sessions, right? Experience people, freshers, experience guys, whoever wants to learn more in depth of microservices, testing people also who are from automation, right? They will have good Java knowledge. They also can join and they can pursue full stack. UI also, whoever good in UI, like Angular or React, if they want to learn backend also, they can join here. Anyone. So they can become full stack. I see many people were joining from testing background and UI background also here, apart from not only Java guys. Okay, so it is recommended for everyone. Because earlier this was really difficult. We cannot encourage testing or UI guys to learn because creating skeleton and understanding architecture, designing service was very difficult. Nowadays, we don't have that stress. Spring Boot, right? Making things very simple. On the fly, you can create anything and you can put the basic code that anybody can do. Experience may show some expertise, in terms of solutions you may show, but coming to the code or implementation, anybody can do. That's why I'm inviting everyone, okay? So whoever wants to learn, they can join here. Or even you are from testing background or a fresher, or you are a Java backend guy wants to learn new things, right? Welcome. Anyone can join here, okay? The only one is okay. Anyway, so anybody can join here. It will be helpful so that you can suggest your friends who want to become a full stack or who wants to migrate from testing to backend implementation or who wants to migrate from old technology, right? Spring framework or few people still working on struts kind of frameworks also. Who wants to switch to cloud-based implementations like Spring Boot microservices, all are welcome. Okay. Yeah, that's it. I'll close the session for today. We'll catch up tomorrow. Till then, have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you all. I shared WhatsApp group link. Please join there. And that is my number. You can reach out to me if you have any questions. Once
Yes, sir.
again, I'm sharing. Yeah. Thank you guys. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.